Chapter 1, Section 6, Algebra 1. As I look at this screencast, I think I identified my 1 as an I. So I'll just let that bug you as much as it does me, but we'll leave it there just to have a great time. 1-6, solving absolute value equations. So one thing we have to understand before we get started with this section is that absolute values possibly can have two different solutions. In this case, the absolute value of -4 is 4, and the absolute value of 4 is 4. So we need to test both of them sometimes. So let's start off with just some basic absolute value equations, something to the effect of the absolute value of x minus 4 equals 6. So we're going to set up two different situations. I would do A and B. That would make sense. Way to go, Renault. So we know that the number inside that absolute value bracket could be 6 and have a value of 6. We also know it could be -6 and have a value of 6. So here's how we test for that. We're going to just bring down the equation without the absolute value brackets and solve it as is. So that's a subtraction on the 4, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. And that gives me a value of x equals 10. We know that value could be -6, so we're going to take x minus 4, and we're also going to set it up to set it equal to -6. And do the same thing. We have subtraction. Let's add 4 to both sides. And so that gives me a value of x equals -2. Now we can check them real quick. If we plug back in 10, 10 minus 4 is 6. The absolute value of 6 is 6. That checks to be true. And then on our second one, letter B, -2 minus 4 is -6. And the absolute value of -6 is 6. So they both check out to be accurate. So my second example, what if I have the absolute value of 4x plus 2 is equal to -8? Well, how many absolute values can equal a negative number? How many points are a negative number away from 0? And because distance can't be negative, if our answer is a -8, that is an impossible absolute value. I cannot take the absolute value of anything and get it to be -8. So this would be no solution. Same on maybe some different answers. Our first one had 2 answers. This one has no solution. What if I took that 4x plus 2 and I set it equal to 0? Obviously, there's only one 0, so I would not need to make 2 cases here. So I would just have one case, and that's going to be 4x plus 2 equals 0. And now it's a multi-step equation from a couple sections back. So we're going to get rid of that positive 2 first by subtracting it. And that's 4x equals -2. Then we take our multiplication and we divide to do the opposite. So that gives me a value of x equals -1/2. So it's possible to have 2 answers, as in our first example. It's possible to have no solution, and it's also possible to just have one answer. Now, there might be some different twists. We could see something like And we might look at that and you might say, well, Mr. Renault, you just said just a minute ago that absolute value couldn't be negative, and that is absolutely true. But what they've done is they've put a negative 10 on the outside of our absolute value. And so by rule that we've learned before, we need to get that negative 10 to the other side by addition, and that means we now have the absolute value of 3x plus 9 is equal to 6, and that's possible. There can be a positive 6. So we go back to our first example and we create two equations. Eliminate the absolute value brackets. So I'm going to work through this one first. We identify the addition. We're going to subtract 9 from both sides. That gives me 3x equals negative 3. Divide both sides by 3. And x equals negative 1. Then we take our second equation, which is going to be 3x plus 9, and we change that 6 to a negative 6. Identify the positive and subtract it. That gives us 3x equals negative 15. Divide both sides by 3, and x equals negative 5. So again, be careful. It might be set up to a negative. However, bringing that 10 over made it a positive 6, and then we could work through it. So that is Chapter 1, Section 6, Solving Absolute Value Equations.